Yeah, once again, I would like to welcome you all to Insurance Banter, powered by Casava. Yeah, our topic for today is personal branding building for 2023. Um, so we have a special guest with us that will be speaking on this topic, Olugbemi Opeyemi. But before then, I would just like to introduce this topic and give you guys the reasons why we decided to talk about this topic at this time. And I believe it's very critical. So personal branding is something that is very critical to career growth. And I believe that generally everyone has personal branding right now. Yeah, I believe that everyone has a personal brand right now because whether you like it or not, you have a perception already to the public. So what this webinar is supposed to do is to teach you how to position yourself in the coming year for better opportunities. Because personally, I believe that personal branding allows you to do two things: win more and earn more. Because at the end of the day, it's actually positioning you for excellence, right? And with us today, that will take us through this journey and help us, just like he has helped a couple of brands in the past with his 8 years experience in this field, is Olugbemi Opeyemi, who has done a lot of brand strategy sessions and consultation for individuals and brands, and even government agencies as well, employers and whatnot, basically using content. And I believe he's very particular about building original content that is actually very authentic, and telling stories that are actually authentic, basically, right? With no further ado, let me welcome Olugbemi Opeyemi, who is a brand consultant. Opeyemi, welcome to the session.
Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon for those of us in Nigeria. If you're not in Nigeria, good day. Choose the one that fits into your time zone. So good your time zone. Am I just supposed to go into my session, or I'm still going to? We're still having a conversation with you two.
Yeah, so we just have to chit chat first. Let's meet you. But before then, I think I skipped introducing myself. My name is Henry, Ulisse Henry. I'm the brand specialist at Casava, and that's why they positioned me to have this conversation with you, because it feels like it actually is going to be a smooth conversation, because we will be talking from the brand perspective. We both have experience in that field. So with Casava, let me just briefly talk about Casava. Casava is actually an insurtech company and a lifestyle brand that seeks to make people thrive and prosper with meaningful and relevant insurance products, unlike traditional companies. And I know you would understand this, unlike very traditional Casava insurance companies. Casava is actually positioning insurance that is very relevant and very much driven by tech. If you will, I feel like at this point you should introduce yourself, Opeyemi.
My name is Opeyemi Olugbemiro. Part of your screen is a brief of what the life has been like over like the last 8 to 10 years. At the moment, I think I'm getting back into the field. I was on a break for about 7 months after working at Fort Canvas for like the last 5 years. And so yes, I worked in Fort Canvas for 5. I worked in newspaper for 2. I worked in digital magazine for about 3. And so yes, so that's about 8 to 10 years across newspaper, radio, and brand communications, right? I am strongly one of the people who believe strongly that the quality of stories told can affect the quality of life and socioeconomic development on the continent, right? And that is why I'm doing what I'm doing. There is a big part of my work that is fueled by the fact that I understand how important what I do can affect how every other person gets to do what they want to do too. So yeah, so that's me in Shoki.
Very interesting, very interesting. So you have print background as well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I started off to doing a couple of printing here and there when I started my career as a visual designer and all of that. So I think we have something in common at least. So yeah, now I would just want to talk about both the topic, personal branding, but we know that we can't talk about personal branding without first of all dissecting what branding is, right? And I feel like branding has a lot of people have a lot of misconception about branding. So the printers, they would think it's just packaging, maybe putting a sticker on a particular product and whatnot. But then again, to me, it is more than that. It is about perception, right? I don't know if you want to speak more on that, and maybe we'll start the conversation from there.
I have a 20-25 minutes video on my YouTube channel. My name is Obayemi Olubemoro, and I think that's the handle on YouTube on branding myths. I went a few minutes ago when I wanted to kind of like repost the tweet. One thing I wanted to say was I usually do not kind of like have conversations around personal branding, but I kind of like decided to do this because I have gotten to understand that everybody needs to understand that individually they are brands, right? And so even what we call personal branding is branding in itself. So the same way I'm going to do branding for an organization, it's the same way I'm going to do branding for a human being. There are a lot of misconception around what branding is. Yeah, there's one that I have tried to scatter every time I have an opportunity to have conversation with people, and it has gotten popular. When people say your brand is not who you say it is, your brand is what people say it is. I'm like, wow. So something as important as your brand is being decided by another person and not you. Are you so serious, right? I have seen that population so much, that definition so much, especially around even brand strategist and brand consultant. And I'm like, if the odds of me choosing or defining what my brand is dependent on someone that is not me, that changes the dynamics of how powerful my brand is, right? And so your brand is what you say it is. The only problem is if you say it is something and it does not align with what people see you as, that's a conflict and not a reason to now become what people say you are. Because again, it means that if the number of people who see you as X changes over time and begin to see you as Y, then you become Y. So if that number of people change again and begin to see you as XY, you become XY, right? So you continue to change based on people. And I think that's not the right way to run your brand. So branding in itself, which is what is like directly in front of the screen. I tried as much as possible not to Google anything on my slide. It was a couple of hours just sitting down and thinking so that I can personalize this class. Branding is a set of intentional actions that help people see you in a certain way, or a form a plan opinion about you or what you represent. Or hence, if there's no expectation, you're not doing branding right. I mean, to just put a little bit more context to what you are seeing on the slide at the moment, branding is a set of actions that are meant to make people see you in a certain way. It is that you have defined an image in your mind, and so you are now making intentional actions, efforts to make people see you that way. That is what branding is, right? It could be the way you talk. It could be where people find you. You know that there's some times, right, that, let me use this example. I don't know how it sounds, but there are some times that everybody knows the person who is like a drunk in the group of friends, and we know where to find them. Guy, you don't check if you know they this bar, this bar, that's on brand, right? Like it's almost exactly the same thing. So a set of actions, or like if you get into an event and you see someone wearing white and has a red cap, you almost exactly know who that person is, right? And it's just activities and activities channeled towards getting people to see you in a certain way. So so that's what branding is. And again, that is what personal branding is. So personal branding is now doing for an individual what you would be doing for like an organization or something. But again, for some of the most ambitious people on earth, their personal brand is almost as important as any other thing, because it is how people see you and perceive you. That's what is going to define how they relate with you over time.
Yeah. Thank you very much, me, for that. That was very insightful. Currently, we have polls on the screen. For everyone here, please try and take the polls. It will help us with some insights as well. So, at this point, I feel like, okay, you've dissected what branding should be, right? Now, putting it into someone's career, so making it more like very personal right now, if you would say, what is like the most important thing for someone to bear in mind when building a personal brand?
Oof. I mean, man, know thyself. That's the most important thing. Man, know thyself. Until you know what makes you on brand, it's hard to know what makes you off brand. So one of the most important part of personal brand is knowing who you are and defining your values and defining the limits of your actions. That's like giving your life railings, right? It is like how your understanding of who you are that is going to affect how you deal with people. For example, I am one of the most amazing storytellers that God ever created, and based on how I want to see myself, and I love communities so much. One of my best podcasts out there was the one I had with Moja and Maswell on We Are All We Have. And so if anybody is dealing with me, I'm not seeing a part of storytelling, and not seeing branding, and not seeing community development, and not seeing impact, and not seeing conversations, then you begin to wonder, this is not the person I talked about earlier. So I think that the first part of personal branding in itself is defining what it is. For example, if you look at the screen, what you have there is personal branding is how you have designed the world to interact, is the you that you have designed the world to interact with, right? It is better if it is consistent with your everyday life. But again, we cannot deny that some people have built alternate career out of creating an alternate identity for themselves. But if I want to look at what is most important for me in terms of talking about building a brand, it is knowing you. It is knowing what you stand for. It is knowing what your values are. Because if branding in itself is a set of consistent action over a period of time, what helps you enjoy, what helps you become, what helps you stay consistent is that you are close to your natural habitat as possible, right? So you don't have to pretend, or you don't have to remember your last life, right? So it's that you can be yourself in. I'm looking for a good example, but I think this works. You can be the same person in the church and at the office, right? So that's your brand, right? So it is knowing who you are, right? I think I wrote about this sometime. I can't remember. I'm trying to see if I wrote about it, because a lot of the things I think I wrote about them in my head. When I was talking about the fact that for some of our biggest superhero movies, one of the most important parts that they get to experience before they go on to become superheroes is that someone gets to explain or show themselves to them. Simba, Lion King, Aquaman before he could hold the trident, Shang-Chi, that the guy with like the plenty bangles, right? A lot of them, because there is a limit to how you can become what you want to become if in itself you don't have a picture of what that thing is. Right. So personal branding, one of the most core is not the core is not even the actions. The core is not even the activities. All right. The core is not even the do this, do that, right? Or social media, do this, do that. I mean, those things are expressions of a core. And let me give an example. Okay, that part is in the part where I'm sharing my story. So I'm going to push that to the front.
So I think, yeah. So thank you very much. So at this point, I think we all have like a better understanding about personal branding and branding itself. So I think at this point, I'll just allow you to run through the slide and take us through. Then at the end of the session, we will now have questions. Yes.
Okay. So you can to my next slide. Again, so since you're the one helping me. So before we go into so I think I'm going to start with this one because I think I've discussed the previous one. NAC. Ooh, I mean, I'm a full-blooded art student, man. So this thing they taught me in SS1, and I don't think I've forgotten NACL. Is that thing that they used to do how to combine different other things? Yeah, it was one of those things I got to know. I mean, I'm so full-blooded art that because the guy was, did you know, and I know everybody knows here, right, that in Nigerian schools, the smart people go to wear science class. The not so smart people who are in the middle go to wear commercial class. Then those that they think that, this one's, they push them to arts class. I don't know if it's common in your school. If it's common in your school, you can just raise up your hands. I'll just see the hands. So, but that's how our own school was, right? So it's so bad that when you fail in science class, what do they do? Push it to art. I'm like, how do they assume that you are going to pass arts just because you failed in science, right? So I mean, teachers refused to allow me to do art because I wanted to do art. And I mean, I finished all distinctions in junior secondary school. So they refused. My parents too did not allow me. So I did SS1. And there was usually the assumption that the art students were dumb and we're not so bright. So SS1, I went to science class. And again, we're top 4 in like the whole class, right? And what even happened? SS2, I now did something very strange. My school to my house is about 7-8 hours by road, the East-West Road. I live in Port Harcourt and I schooled in Ondo State. And I got to school because I knew my parents would not be able to come. And I just called them and said that I've moved to art class. And I bought art textbook with the money that they gave me. And I just called them, guy, I've moved though. My dad complained, but something happened afterwards, which I'm going to try to see how I can connect to this NACL story. Because when I was in science class, I wasn't dumb. And I was possibly beating some of the persons that was going to look down on me as dumb. It changed the dynamics of how people saw art class. And we now became like a group of about 4 or 5 that competed with science students on anything we are doing together. Biology, you will see us in top 10, art class. Agric, you see us in top 10. Economics, you see us in top 10. I decided and I made up my mind, came out with A1 in mathematics in my WIAC, right? I think it was B or something in NECO, so I can't remember, right? But what that did for at least the people that were coming behind in art class over the period was it helped people to change stuff. So sometimes personal branding in itself is becoming a story. Back to NA and CL, right? If you mistakenly combine NA and CL, which is like sodium and chloride, which is where started the story, right? You're going to get salt. If you do it unintentionally, you still get salt. Rather, but the person who does it intentionally can replicate results, but the person who stumbles on it cannot, right? So personal branding has to be intentional. After you have defined who you are, you have had in mind a picture of how you want people to see you. The next thing is to what? Set in motion intentional actions, activities, experiences, belief system, values, content creation, kind of friends that are going to help you become this person that you have designed in your head, right? Next slide. So while some people stumble on their brand, right? Some people intentionally design it. But for people who stumble on it, after a period of time, they cannot sustain it. And that's why you see some people different things at different seasons of their life. And there's nothing consistent about it. And I've always shared, especially for people who I work with, when I talk to brands, that the mind subconsciously notices markers. That is why sometimes you feel very inconvenient around some people, right? But you cannot, I just don't feel, because what happens is a whole lot of your decision making happens at the very subconscious level. So when your mind has subconsciously noticed a level of inconsistency with someone over a period of time, your mind builds a wall for you not to fall victim to that inconsistency. So what happens at the end of the day is you just don't feel, people don't just feel like, if you know, I know that, let me use another example that makes this a bit more practical. A lot of people, let me not say I have, because I don't have, God forbid, I will not have. A lot of you know the person in your group of friends that you cannot say secrets around. All of you know that if the person just joins the whole conversation, everybody just change topic, right? And it's because over a period of time, this person has showed a certain level of character. But again, let's just go back to and focus on the class so that the example does not take you out. Personal branding is not packaging, right? I mean, I don't know how, because most times at the point when I used to do personal branding, I think I did personal branding last in 2019 or so. That was the last time I had personal branding. So when someone comes to meet me and wants to do personal branding, and I tell them that the first thing we are going to do is a brand strategy, and they're like, I just thought it's just for us to be posting, take good pictures. I'm like, wow, that's not that's not how we do it here, man. All right. So people think driving up your perception with padded achievement will work. Yeah, sometimes it does, but it's not sustainable. It just means that you're building a skyscraper with a pack of cards. It can come crashing down anytime. So it is not packaging. It is not padding stuff. You're not National Assembly, you're not padding budget, right? So it's not packaging, right? It's not lying. This one should goes without, no, this one like should go without like saying. It's not at all. It's not lying. See, trust is not easy to build. When you lose trust, like you will spend more years getting back to the where you were before people stop trusting you than to even building like a now higher level of trust. So it's not lying, because people think it is. When people already catch you that everything you said on LinkedIn the last time was were lies. You think that the next time you do a CV, you'll just realize that the person says, we believe what you said, but we still feel that you should come and do a practical. Like, because see, lying will kill you, right? Lying will kill you. So yeah, personal branding is not lying. Next slide, please. Personal branding is not pretending to be who you are not, because one day the real you will show. And when you show, because you know that people are not disappointed. People are more disappointed in the fact that they believed that you were something else than the fact that we expect this from you and you disappointed us, if you get what I mean. So that's why I'm going to be using like some real-time examples. When a pastor cheats, it's a scandal. When the guy in your class that you know that this one has been balling up and down with like different people, when he cheats, he gets healed. You have done it again. You have caught another fish, something like that, right? The only difference between both persons is that we expect X to be X, we expect Y to be Y. When X begins to behave like Y, then there's problem. So it is not pretending to be who you are not, because again, the day that, right? So name dropping. right? I mean, this one is usually really sad. So, like, it's not, I know everybody in the ecosystem. Then I'll give you work as partnership head and you struggle. All right. God will now bless you. Like, let me just read even what I have on my slide. God will now bless you. One day, the name you drop will be on the other side of the table and will be available to say, I know you not, right? I mean, I coined this when I was preparing the slide at 1915. You know, when that guy that was beating people say, Peter, I know. Sorry, Paul, I know. Jesus, I know. But who are you? Those sons of Sceva. And they beat Shaggy. So yeah, next slide. So it's not name dropping, right? It is blowing your own trumpet. If you can't tell your own story, at least have friends or employ people who can. I mean, I know that you should have. If you don't have, I don't know how to help you. Have friends who can sell you better than you. Like, have you ever been in a place where someone is telling you, like, maybe no. Oh, sorry, there are a lot of people who don't speak Yoruba here. They're like, maybe no, like, really? Emino is like, it's me too. Like, is it me that they are describing? Right? And that's the best way to put it. Right? Everybody has a story, but what makes the difference most of the time is how the story is told. Right? So blow your own trumpet. That's personal branding. First, it means that the trumpet is your own. It has to be your own so you can blow it, right? Because again, as I've explained, it means finding your natural habitat and learning how to master it. No need to become someone else when you have not even explored becoming the best version of yourself, right? Personal brand is not that, I want to be Elon Musk. Why? Like, why? And that's why you see a lot of times people start things and can't finish. Why? Because the personal branding thing that they designed for themselves is way out of reach of their natural habitat. So after they have struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled, they just restore back to default setting, previous setting before the update. So it's like really important, right? That you find your natural habitat and learn how to master it. That's what personal branding is. And the thing about learning how to master it is if you're sharing things that are natural, right? You're sharing your struggles as you're going and trying to master stuff. It is easier. It is easier, like, because for you, the thing you are talking about is the thing you are facing. So you're narrating the experiences like in real time. And so when someone wants to invalidate you, or even when imposter syndrome knocks on the door and you're like, you open the door and show imposter syndrome that, oh yeah, see me now, this is me, right? It's me. Like it happened to me yesterday. Next slide. So it is bonine it, like bonine it, right? Match up your talk with your work, right? This is like an anchor point of consistent storytelling. I don't want to start with the whole Bonner has always been Bonner, right? But I'm Bonner, I mean, arguably for me, I'm Team Davido, by the way. I've always been Team David, but I think we were driving down a few days ago. I was like, I don't think anybody has like the talent that Bonner has among the three of them, right? But I'm Team Davido. Like, after, please, Casava, when you're recording this thing, remove this part of the recording because I'm Team Davido. But yeah, Bonner.
Yeah, it stays the way it is because I'm a big Bonner fan. So,
I mean, so, but Bonner is personal branding is being able to walk the talk. It's not that you go all brag and okay, now say, oh yeah, come and do it. Take, yeah. You have said this thing. You say you are the. Oh, wow. So they now give you to do and you can't do anything. Like, yeah. So I mean, Bonner has always been Bonner. Bonner has always been amazing, but there was an amazing opportunity in the Coachella small fun stuff. He rode on it, built on it, did album on it. Next thing got the Grammy, and now he's filling up stadiums across the world. It's the same Bonner. Like, it's the same Bonner. Like, nothing else. But what just happens is should I answer questions now? I just wait to the end because I just saw like a question from Adele Raf Chisholm.
Yeah, whatever works for you, but ideally I thought that we would just run through it. But you can take this question, at least since we just have one now.
Yeah, I'll just take this one. So
Let me read out the question.
Yeah, so yeah,
Or,
Bonite. I'll read it out. I'll read it out so it just helps my flow.
all right.
In a situation where you discover that you almost have the same personal brand as another person, how can you work out your own unique brand to enable you to appear outstanding to the outside world? Man, I don't think there are two people who are the same thing. And if you have two people who are similar, be similar but maintain your difference. I don't think that. See, I have friends. I have friends who are like storytellers too, but there's nobody who tells stories like me. Like, see, right? How I see things is even my strongest strength, my experiences, how I read, right? I used to tell people that I have a natural capacity to do the things I do, and I play on it a lot. I'm hardworking, but I'm also really gifted, right? So find the thing that makes you different. You can be similar, but you can never be the same, right? So, like, as much as possible, if you have noticed on this chart, I'm real on what it is and what it is not for me, because again, I don't know examples that I can use apart from my own example, right? So I talk about me, and it's like, because I am able to walk the talk, right? So why there are a lot of people who are like me, there's nobody like me. Rather, there's nobody who is me. Yes, let's just end it that way. So I don't think you can end up seeing that your people, like, if you want to become another Debola Williams, so what just happen at the end of the day, you just become another Debola Williams, right? But become you, like, become you, become your Ralph. There is no other person that can be Ralph, because one, no, the person that has your similar branding did not grow up in the same yard that Ralph grew up, or in the same estates that Ralph grew up, doesn't have the same kind of parents with Ralph, did not go to the same secondary school, did not have the same classmates, right? I mean, most times we never even listen to the same kind of songs. So tap into your experiences that make you unique. There is always something, right? There is always a way to present yourself in a way that is different from how other people present themselves. Next slide. Oof. So yeah, Bonite, yeah. And again, don't leave your narrative to chance. This is one thing a lot of people do. Qui sera, sera, right? Or they were like, I just want to be working hard. I just want to be working hard. I just want to be working hard. I don't need to be telling my story. Let everybody just be who they are. And let's focus. People who talk about their work are not good enough. Are you serious? Okay. See, you know that if they put two people who are excellent at the same level, right? Who are excellent at the same level, knows how to do stuff, is very good, And this one has a stronger perception than the other person. At the level of decision making, most of the times, especially when it is an engagement that needs brand equity, people go for the person with the strongest perception and the strongest story. So don't leave your narrative to chance that people will tell it. That if you are good enough, people will talk about you. Are you serious? Wow. So, like, don't leave your narrative to chance. Because if people describe your excellence in their own way, it is hard for even you that have the excellence to change the definition. Especially if one has become more popular. So don't leave your narrative to chance. You can even decide to say that you're not talking so much about your work, you're not doing X, you're not doing Y, you're not doing Z. You can even decide to do that, right? But ensure that you have steady story that lives. People may be thinking of what you are not, or people may not, let me put it this way, people may not be clear on what you are based on the fact that, let's say you want to pull a Wizkid, the whole anonymity, the whole godlike. I don't think anybody has the godlike presence that Wiz has across Bonner, David, and Wiz. Wiz has a godlike personality. Like, when he enters a place, everywhere changes, right? But that's Wiz, right? So if you may want to pull a Wiz, so you're not sure what he is, but again, people need to be sure what you are not. right? That's like a way to say don't leave your narrative to chance, right? Next slide, please. Again, actions and inactions compound. Personal branding is one way to improve your odds. I usually say that I think it was one of my birthdays. I mean, I just tweeted at EDTF Young and I said I wanted him to tell me what he would have told his 25-year self. All right. I mean, we had a long drive from the Anaco office on the island to one of their clients' office on the mainland because he was busy, and he said something. He said that let me just paraphrase. So what that whole conversation was on was that time and chance happens to everybody, right? It's luck. A lot of people were arguing with Tony Lumelu when he said that his life is luck. I mean, the billionaire said there's luck in his life, and you are arguing with him. Are you serious? Why? Well, okay, that's not the conversation, right? That there's luck, there's chance, there's time. But what happens is that consistency increases your odds of luck meeting you. It's the same thing for Bonner. Bonner has always been Bonner. There was just one opportunity and spark, and he just continues to be who he has always been. English is hard. But yeah, actions and inactions compound over time. So if you're not doing what is right, it will compound over time. If you're doing what is right, it will compound over time. Personal branding is one way to improve your odds of ensuring that consistency, or of ensuring that luck meets you on your day of consistency. Right, next slide. Ooh. Thank you. Have an expectation, right? Because people think that personal branding is just doing stuff, right? It's not though. You should have something in your mind. Tie your actions and objectives. If this thing is done right, what should people think of me? What is that image that should be formed in their minds, right? Next slide. Have an expectation. I think the next slide helps to explain this a bit. Okay, no, I don't think, but just stay here. Don't need to go to the previous slide. Okay, I think it does. Life is a collection of pictures, right? How people perceive you is translated into images in their minds. If you can control that picture, right, then you can have considerable influence over your career trajectory, which is connecting to the previous slide. Does it affect your personal growth? Yes, because most of the time, right, people have in their mind the number that they can pay you based on what they think you are or who they think you are. It's the same reason why two people will apply for a job and they may pay this person 3x what they would have paid this other person. So your personal brand will affect, because again, human beings are carriers of equity. So if I join a company now, there's a level of equity that comes with that company, right? That comes with me joining that company. It's like Messi joining a team or more. Everything changes. Apart from the fact that he has ability, let me give an example. There were 11 players on the pitch who were starting. Cristiano Ronaldo was not starting the game, and almost half of the cameras on the field were not concerned about the people on the field, came to video and take picture of the person on the bench. Man, like, there are 11 people who are going to play the game. He didn't get into that game until like 5 minutes to the end of the game. But from the beginning of the game till the end, they were talking about the person on the bench. Like, so personal brand that has walk the talk is strong. It will affect your perception. It will affect your perception. It will affect how people see you. It will affect how much you can charge. Sometimes personal branding is the only difference between you that is charging 2 naira and the person that is charging 300 naira for the same thing you are doing. I mean, there's a barber that will be taking 500 naira to cut the hair, and another person is taking 150K to cut the hair. And the person who's taking 500 naira may be cutting afro, and the person who's taking 150K may just be doing low cut. So yes, it can affect your growth, because again, right, it's only God that sees the heart. Human beings see outside. Right, next slide. Oof.
So sorry, before I move on to the next slide, we have polls up right now, and we
Okay.
would encourage every of the participants to take part in this poll. It will help us get insights. We have one question. I don't know if you want to take the question, or we'll just wrap it up. Then you can now attend to that.
Let me take the question. I can't find it, but yeah,
It's from Ralph again. So he says, "How do I recover my personal branding if my image was tarnished by people because of competition?"
The only way to correct a wrong story is to become a right story, right? People put so much effort in wanting to change something instead of becoming things that people see and people now talk about. If it's people that tarnish your image, and hopefully that thing that they say yeah, you did not do it, hopefully. What happens is just continue to be you. Has it ever happened before that someone came to say something that Okpe did this so, and someone just stand up and say, lie, it's not the one. Because, right, people's experiences of you, right, will affect how quick they would come to defend you over time, right? So if your image was tarnished before, become the direct opposite of the tarnished image, especially, or rather just continue to be you, right? See, if you are a good person, even when people say bad things, it may not stick. Let me say it may not, because sometimes bad people are very bad and they are doing everything, right? So that's why over time, you know that if you have always been on brand to do X, Y, Z in a certain way, the day someone accuses you of something that is off your brand, it will take time for people to believe. Like, it's not the one. It's not the one. What will not happen is that they will not be looking for evidence. But if you don't even have a stand on anything, if people throw dirt on your image, it will stick. Because first, people don't know you. They don't know what you're standing on. They don't have an idea, right? So, to end that question, so I can move to the next slide. The only way to change a story is to tell another story. And I think sometimes it's even stronger if you can become the story. So anytime imposter syndrome knocks on my door, I tell the story. I think this is what I wanted to kind of like share. That I had to stop myself when I was having that conversation. A few years ago, I think it was 2014 Canvas moved to Lagos, to Ibadan. I think it was 2017. 2018, 2019. I can't remember the exact year. I sat down. The office had just moved to Ibadan. And I felt really, I didn't like how things were going. Let me just put it that way. I didn't like how things were going. And it was, I just sat down like, oh more, I have talent and I'm gifted now. Why? Because why is this thing not, it's not, why is every other thing not better as it's supposed to be better? Right. And I started having conversations with myself. So I did something that I now do for brands and get paid for. And I didn't even know what it was. I did brand strategy because then I just asked myself, I think it was a note, that note is still somewhere. I asked myself, I did a listing of my strengths, my weaknesses, the opportunities that come from my strengths, the opportunities that come from my weaknesses. Let me give an example. So let's say you talk too much, that could be a weakness, but again, you can make it a strength and say, oh, instead of me to be talking too much, I will ensure that there's substance in my talking too much, right? I mean, so there are opportunities and some weaknesses, right? So I did that. I wrote that, then I wrote a whole stuff, like page. I wrote all the people I wanted to meet within a period of time. I wrote the number of people who I wanted to have as image that, hey, this is the kind of person I want to become. And I did that. I wrote out all the things I perceive as my skills, right? Talents and giftings. And I wrote and I had them in scattered places, and I drew a circle in the middle. And I say, what is that one thing that if they call me this, right? It has every other thing in tentacles, right? And I started calling myself brand storyteller. As of then, there were very few people calling themselves brand storyteller in the Nigerian tech ecosystem. I didn't even think there was anybody that was major, right? And a few months to that time was my birthday, and every 87 or 90% of people who knew me and wanted to wish me happy birthday did happy birthday to storyteller of our time, happy birthday to brand storyteller of Africa, happy birthday to X, happy birthday to Y. In my head, that showed me that this thing on Shisha is working, is working, is working. So anytime imposter syndrome knocks on my door, which sometimes it does, especially when I want to hit a new ceiling, I answer with, I designed this thing. I wanted people to see me as this, and it took me less than 6 months, and people saw me as it. Intentional action. Next slide. So yeah, that's like, so I think the question that I had from the Casava team that made me answer this was, how do you now deploy this personal branding in 2023 to ensure that you have a great, strong, and compelling personal brand? And I was like, one, become unapologetically you. There is no better version of you than you. But there are better versions of other things. So you constantly improve. You build a value system. The thing about value system is your value system shows in times when you are not even expecting it to show. Right? It's like, it is the thing that ensures that if you say that you have water, when the excuse is water that comes out and not ogogoro, right? So build a value system before you need a value system to stand, right? Have experience, grow your experience, and leverage your experience. Like leverage your experience. For example, I'm a proper Port Harcourt boy. I'm not sure that there are some things I know now that I would know if not I'm a proper Port Harcourt boy. Have something that you're passionate about. Have personal goals that tie into your personal branding goals, and leverage family and relationships, right? These are some of like the things that I think that could help you, because in itself, your personal brand is a combination of everything that makes you you, your values, your experience, your passion, your personal goals, your family, and your relationships, vertically and horizontally, directly or indirectly, people who will stand and vouch for you. I mean, let me just do this as an example before I end, because I think this is the last part, except I have like a couple of questions to answer. I usually tell people that people do not know that they are losing things, they are dropping money on the ground when they don't maximize their WhatsApp stories. You know why? Have someone ever said, we have not spoken in a while, and your response is, I've been seeing your WhatsApp story. You were here yesterday, you were here day before. Because one, WhatsApp stories get you close to people. Sometimes someone is even responding to messages, but the person is seeing your WhatsApp stories. What happens is, I'm the army of people who know you directly with enough information to make a case for you in rooms where you are not there. That's what WhatsApp stories can do, right? And I think this is like the last slide, Henry. And I think it's been a good one. Oof, that's about, go back to the previous one. This 250, that's about 50 minutes. No, the next one. So there's so much gray these days. No, yeah, the next one. There's so much gray these days, right? The next one, Harry. Yeah, there's so much gray these days. In our parents' generation, everything was black and white. Now there's so much gray, right? If you take a stand, no matter how dark or how white, you will find people line up behind you. If you're a good person, your people line up behind you. If you are a Johnny Drill, find people line up behind you. If you're a Portable, you find people line up behind you. If you're neither there nor there, you'll find very few people line up behind you. So those people will either cheer you on or throw you stones. But for people to be cheering you on or throwing you stones, it means that you're already on a pedestal. Yes. So, because people don't cheer or throw stones to people who are behind. Thank you. I think you can leave it on this last slide, which I think it's not the thank you, but yeah, thank you. So we can now go back to the previous slide and I can take a couple of questions before I complete it there.
Okay, thank you very much, Okwe. We really appreciate this. Personally, I even learned a lot during this session. I thought I knew a lot about personal branding, and you opened my eyes to a new perspective about personal branding. By the way, we have a message from Emmanuel Wandubo. It's not a question. Emmanuel, we've taken note of this, and the right team will get across to you. Thank you. So for me, like I was saying, this session was actually very eye-opening to some new areas in personal branding. And there are some things that you mentioned that I just want to reference and probably shed more light on. So you mentioned something about growth, that personal branding helps with growth. Like I said earlier, two things I feel like personal branding will do to make you win more and earn more. Because at the end of the day, people will see you as an authority or as a thought leader in that field. And thereby, when they need that service in that particular field, they run to you first, right? And that's the idea. So there's one thing you actually addressed that I was going to ask about imposter syndrome, because I've always struggled with that as well personally. And I know a couple of persons here will have that situation where they think, oh, they are not enough to even be seen as a thought leader. And I like that you really addressed that as well. Then one question will be, for those that you said we should understand and identify our natural habitats, right? And by this, I would also want to include the channels with which we engage our audience, our prospective audience, right? So for someone who is not a good speaker or someone who doesn't write well, you might be good at both or you might be good at one. What would you suggest for someone like that?
What would I suggest for someone like what? For which one?
So, for instance, if I really do not like, so some people would leverage video content a lot to actually put our content out there, and maybe you're camera shy or you feel like you can't speak well and you don't want to put your face out there. What would you suggest for someone like that who thinks, oh, I'm missing out on what video content will do for me and all of that?
My first question is, why don't you want to put yourself out there? So that's the question, which is always also fine. If you really don't want to and you think that you have good reasons not to, that's fine. But again, you need to be certain that it is not any form of complex. So if you're certain that it is not any form of complex, then again, so you just work. I usually say that everybody needs to get their stories told one way or the other. If for you, your story, it's more like the whole privilege conversation, right? If someone who is rich or who was born in a family of Warren Buffett, right? There are some things that the person can have an opinion of. Oh, I don't want to go to the, I don't think I know. Oh, I don't think I mean, it's fine, because again, there's a level of privilege that helps them make some decisions. But if you were born in a yard in Port Harcourt, like a yard, right? You know that you have more punches to do to get to where you need to get to. So your options, you don't begin to do limited options. Like you're like on every way, video, content, podcast, newspaper. If you can even do flyer to put in Mr. Biggs, maybe you will do. But again, that's not it. I'm just giving a general example, a general feel. But what I'm saying is certain privileges give you opportunity to be able to make certain decisions. So, because again, someone will say there are some people who do not used to do YouTube, who do not used to do video, who do not used to do things that are X, Y, Z. I'm like, are you them? Do you have the privileges that they have? So you need to also understand the privileges that you have, the strengths that you have, and leverage them. There are some people who are not known, that people don't know their face, but the industry knows their work. So if you can't do face, Maybe you do work that is strong, that people now begin to be the one to put their face to your work. So more like, oh, you want this, go get, talk to Olise. You want this, go get, talk to Olise, right? So it means that if you cannot talk, ensure that your work is so good that it is screaming. So it's not even talking, right? So if you cannot talk, maybe you be an amazing writer. So if you cannot talk, maybe you be friends to storytellers who can sell your market. So like you need to find possible ways to ensure that you get results, especially if results are in front of you. So while everything could be, there are a lot of, maybe I cannot talk, but I can write, but I cannot talk. I can talk and write, but I'm shy. There are like different levels to this question. But the problem is not what you cannot do. The problem is what you can do. Find it.
Yeah. Thank you. But someone here says it's even better. Say, tell it yourself or get someone to tell it. I think that should help with the individual feels or she can't write or speak to tell their stories. I totally agree with that. Yeah. So if anyone has any other question, please drop them in the question and answer segment. We'll take them because we're trying to wrap up very soon. We don't want to take much of your time. So there was something you mentioned about not leaving your narrative to chance. And I think that thing just struck a chord with me, where I was at this seminar one time and the facilitator was saying, if personal branding or just making your brand very aware to the public is not relevant, Coke wouldn't be doing anything, right? They won't be doing so much. And at the end of the day, you would see that he was trying to compare Zobo. You know Zobo, right? That Zobo, right? He was comparing Zobo with Coke, that Zobo has more nutritional values than Coca-Cola, but yet people get to buy Coke a lot compared to Zobo because they've actually invested in branding and marketing, right? Yeah, so just thought to put that out there. Then I would just want to summarize some of these things that you said during this session. For me, four basic pointers. So for me, it seems like you have to perceive because you need to change. You don't have to wait for people to tell you how they perceive you. You need to know how you want to be perceived, right? Then you prepare the planning, identifying your core values and the strategy and all of that. Then the third part is to propel. So you keep consistently putting content out there, storytelling and all of that. And at the end of the day, you prosper. Prosper would put, because at the end of the day, once you do all of these three things, it will position you for excellence and people will run coming to you and you won't lose any money on the table like you mentioned. We have one question here from Innocent Ijoma. Do you want to take it or I should read it out? Okay, so I think this is more like I have a policy with Casava, and I'm sure that at his business model, what you offer to your clients.
This is not a question.
Oh, this is not a question. Okay, so Innocent would go through this and get back to you, or you can say you can drop your email and your contact number, so get across to you. Thank you very much, Well, this was actually very insightful, and I actually look forward to meeting you in person. So we'll talk more about all of these things.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm going to end with this. I mean, because I need to run now, is that especially because you mentioned they're not leaving your branding to chance. If you don't talk about your story, someone would, right? And you need to pray to God that the person who is telling your story tells it right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, we would like to give special shout out to those who are consistently joining our webinars. We see you, Ralph. We see all of you. Thank you very much. We are building a community at Casava of people who would thrive and prosper. And we believe that for the coming year, personal branding will do a lot and present more opportunities to you. And that's why we're having this session. And then again, Casava as a brand, we offer very relevant and meaningful products. And one of our products, which is income protection, is very very key to personal branding, because I feel like before you even move on to earning more, you need to actually protect what you have right now. And income protection does that. So income protection is a product whereby once you're subscribed, you have insurance for your salary. If just in case you lose your job as a result of business closure or dismissal, we will pay you your salary for 6 months. You can check www.casava.com for more. Thank you very much, Okwe. Thank you for everyone that joined. This was very insightful. I think at this point, it's a wrap. Thank you.